Hi, I'm Pratim Ranjan Bose, and you're watching Podcast with Pratim, presented by Iravati Research and Communication Center, or IRCC. This is part two of my discussion with retired Major Dr. Rajan Kochar on Make in India in Defense. Mr. Kochar is an expert in defense sector modernization. He is a PhD in management, an author, and media commentator. He advises various defense research institutes and think tanks in India. In part one, we discussed how private sector manufacturing is helping Indian armed forces to bridge the technology gap in weaponry. We also outlined why India must increase private sector allocation for defense procurement. Link of part one is available in the details of this video. In part two, we went deeper into the technology and availability issues of arms and spares. I think you articulated your point very well. What you said is that your investments in army is not a factor of what you plan yourself. It is actually a factor of what your adversary is planning, and also how the geopolitics is moving, and which is common for most strategic things, that you have to have your domestic basis. Otherwise, you are going to suffer from supply crunch. Now, sir, there were a lot of reports about this indigenously developed Joravar light combat tank, which is being manufactured by L&T. They also grabbed, I think, a $1 billion, nearly $1 billion contract for close-in weapon systems. Now, how critical are these acquisitions? I'm just going by the newspaper reports. I have nothing to do with the company here, but I'm just saying that how critical are these acquisitions? And if you can kindly explain, what is this close-in weapon systems? Whatever I could get is that these are radars.
See, it's like this. Let's talk about this Zoravar tank first. The requirement of the Indian Army as per RFP is 700 tanks. 59 have been supplied to the army as of now, and this is a direct competitor to the Type 15 light tank of the PLA. So what happens here in Ladakh is due to high altitude, low pressure, and oxygen aspects, uh, we found that the T90 tank, as well as the T72 tank, which is almost 48 tons in weight. A light tank weighs approximately 25 tons. So, as a comparison, we can say that almost half you see the power to weight ratio. A tank's uh, efficacy or its operational effectiveness is based on the power to weight ratio. So now in a high altitude, you need to have lighter tanks. So your power to weight ratio, your tanks can move with a faster speed, with a faster torque, and things like this. So this tank has been made by L&T. It's a great achievement, I would say, because I will take your mind back to K9 Vajra, the self-propelled howitzer, which was also in collaboration with a South Korean firm, and L&T have actually made it. And this was being used as in the role of a light tank in the Ladakh, with a few modifications carried out. And so one interesting development is that Bharat Forge has also jumped into this competition. And Bharat Forge is also now manufacturing a light tank, which will be less than 25 tons, which is going to compete with the Zoravar tank. So I think this is a sign of this kind of a competition augurs well for our Make in India and our defense industries. And if this process is going to be successful, you will find that we will be in a position to export these tanks
Exactly.
to other countries.
Exactly. Arms is a huge industry. We have
Yes.
just tasted it, as you said, 21,000 crore. So that is roughly a little over $2.5 billion. And but globally, that is, there is one theory, and this is not by me, but by some American think tank itself, is that the $175 billion that the American Congress has been giving to uh, Ukraine, right? Majority of it, they did it with a purpose. They thought that the money will come back to the US for arms manufacturing. And 70 American cities are witnessing a huge surge in production and labor intake. So it is a huge economic activity. Sir, India and Russia have a couple of JVs in defense. BrahMos is doing very good for the country. We are exporting it. There is so much demand for it. How is the Indo-Russian rifles doing? They delivered, I read that they delivered some 35,000 AK-203s. I think more they have to, because the whole army is going for a complete recall of the
Yes.
overall of this system. But and you wrote extensively for replacement of INSAS. I saw that. Uh, but are they merely assembling in India or doing value addition or getting into production? Because I saw some reports saying that they are merely assembling. Over to you, sir.
The Okay. It's a very good question. I wrote an article on this AK-203 rifle, and I had the opportunity to discuss it with Jal Sharma, who's the managing director of IRPL. And he is the one who is entrusted with the responsibility of manufacture of this item in India. So, what I am given to understand is that initially there were some issues as far as transfer of technology was concerned. They were prepared to transfer 80% technology, but 20%, they won't transfer. Ultimately, India told them in absolutely uncertain terms that we want 100% of this technology transfer, and because ultimately we have to manufacture this weapon in India with all quality control checks in place, and it will be a joint venture, and that is how the Russian and the Indians have actually come about. You are right, the initial lot of the rifle uh, uh, came to us in uh, you know uh, uh, knockdown kits, we call it. It actually came to us in knockdown kits, and it was assembled here. A few items of lower technology were manufactured in the factory, which were required for the rifle, and the rifle was assembled, and so fast 35,000 have been delivered. But now what is happening is that this manufacturing base is being already, it's in a very, very advanced stage, because you see our requirement of rifles is almost uh, 2.5 lakhs ultimately.
Okay.
So this 35,000 is only
This is
an interim.
2 to 2.5 lakhs is to replace the existing rifles, but then
uh,
you will
uh,
have regular demands
yes, after that, ultimately the Indian Army requires around 8 lakh rifles. So you
per year.
ultimately to
Per year.
no, 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 no. You see, the force level we have at about 12 lakhs is our army. So we need to have around 7 to 8 lakhs of this rifle with us. And right now, Insat rifle is there. So it has to be gradually replaced with the AK-203 as the personal weapon of each soldier of the Indian Army. So this will take some time, and that's why the INSAS upgrade has come in. If you would have read in the news also, the INSAS upgrade has been made, and possibly Ministry of Defense is trying to toy with an idea that till such time the AK-203 comes to us in large numbers, uh, we will upgrade this rifle, because all those defects like heating of the barrel, breaking of the magazine, uh, the breech block and the firing mechanism getting stuck, and all those.
How long you were living with this defective rifles or
We
inadequately or
almost more than 2 decades.
my God. And that is your like your hand and leg.
Yeah, it's
This
like
personal.
उसको बोलते हैं ना, like for the lady, the most precious item is the Mangal Sutra for a married woman. Uh, the most precious item for a soldier is his weapon, because it is with him 24/7, and it's his lifeline. His very survival depends upon his personal weapon. And if you don't give him the right quality of the weapon, you are compromising his safety and the security of the nation. So that's why this need was felt. And of course, I don't like to go into the history and all, because it is a very, very, uh, it's a case study by itself, that how much time it took and
So
all.
you were saying that now they are going for full scale manufacturing of AK-203s.
Yes, yes, that is the ultimate plan.
Okay. No, I mean, are they increasing the production process? I mean, making it.
Yes, yes. There is a time-bound plan, the time-bound production process, and they hope to achieve it in the next 3 years.
Okay. I'm asking these questions because for a very reason, if you assemble, then there wouldn't be an ecosystem. What we need is an ecosystem to build. There should be component makers. If we remember initially the in automobiles, we started with assembling practically, right?
Yes,
But
yes,
then the whole industry came up. In smartphones, we are more into, we started with assembling, now got a bit deeper, and then the ecosystem will get deeper. So that is very essential if we want to be a manufacturing, if we want to enhance the scope of manufacturing. So that, sir, the final question, and this is again on Russia. I mean, we cannot talk defense and defense military hardware without Russia. We have historical dependence on that country for uh, weapon components. I mean, because our historical purchase is mostly Russian. So the components for component segments, I believe you can tell me better that you are more dependent on Russia than any other place. Uh, which also means that we are vulnerable to supply glitches. We read about something about this during this Russia-Ukraine war, that there were some problems with them, in supplying certain things. Are we taking it up to Russia to set up shops for these components in India? I'm saying this because Delhi recently opened a window. Is that rupee ruble thing? There was a riddle with rupee ruble, because if we buy from them, they are earning in rupee, and what should they do with that rupee? Because the trade is heavily in their favor. So in that case, the government opened a window allowing Russia to invest the surplus rupees in India. They had some 6 billion surplus, and they said that it has already been invested in India. So now
absolutely.
here is a case, therefore, that there can be a possible opportunity. Do you have any idea about this?
Yes, see, what has happened is the Prime Minister's recent visit to Russia, and prior to that, the External Affairs Minister also went to Russia. One of the agenda points and the important points was the MRO support uh, to the equipment which is of Russian origin. Now, you see, what happens here is that you for an industry to be set up for your spares management, you require a constant supply line. You for that I'll give you example. For an industry or a small scale industry to sustain itself, it needs to have continuous orders, and especially if you don't have items which don't have a civil end use, uh, which are don't have a dual use, like that it is only used in military, it is not used for any other industry. So when you have this kind of a system, you will find it very few industries uh, coming up to sort of you set up your base in India. And the problem is this: see, unless you start manufacturing the main equipment, you take our own industry, defense PSUs. If you are manufacturing the main battle tank in Audi, so you will also manufacture the spares of the tank, because that actually goes into the manufacture of the full component. Problem is that when you have a T-90 tank, Russian tank, when you have a T-72 tank, and when you talk about manufacturing of the spares or the other items which are rotables and things like this, which are required for uh, an aircraft, or you can talk about Sukhois also. I mean, you need not restrict it to the army. You can talk about the ships we have got from Russia. The gunship platforms are there. I think it may not be possible, because you
You
may
have a point
discuss.
that you need the OEM also. I mean, when you have the mother
Ah,
industry, then one line
ah,
supplies the original equipments. The other is
yes.
the replaceable spares, right?
Yes,
Replacement.
see, those low technology items you can manufacture. I mean, so that is not an issue. But I am talking about the major issue, like supposing, for example, a gearbox of a tank. So now manufacturing the gearbox of a tank is not an easy
We are
job.
manufacturing these tanks here now, or we are importing.
No, see, T-90, T-72 is all from Russia.
So the job
Uh,
ahead is to replace those machines and have
you
your
see,
own machine.
ultimately, ultimately, if we have now started with light tanks, so now you will find that everything which is related to the light tank is going to be manufactured in India. So you have the MBT, which was a replacement for the T-90. You started manufacturing in India, but MBT is not a very great success story. I can still say that, because it will take some time for an MBT to also actually mature into a versatile platform. But then at the same time, the debate is also coming in that why you want to have so many tanks when the drone warfare has disturbed the myth that a tank is a potent actually weapon in the battlefield today. Look what has happened in Ukraine. A kind of damage. All the T-90 tanks are standing in a line, all damaged by the drones. So this is a debate, drones versus tank debate, and the die-hard tank men of the Indian Army will never agree that the drones can replace a tank, because a tank has a role by itself. But in the times to come, your warfare has to change. So you can't be totally dependent on your tanks. Now you have the drones also to counter these tanks. So we are talking about technology and the changing times, and you will find that the importance of a tank or a main battle tank will also go down in times to come, when more advanced drone platforms will be available to you, which will be able to produce the same effect as a tank gives you.
That's pretty interesting. When we know this, all these discussions in the past about army procurement, so some people sitting at the top, they used to, with pen and paper, they used to decide how much is required here, how much is there, and they used to debate, had their own time. took their own time, and then they ordered, then the negotiations went on, then the opposition cried foul, blah, blah, blah. So I think that whole model closed from command structure is a time to change that. There has to be a new thing. It has to be more dynamic, more market oriented approach to planning, that what is happening in technology. So now we are shifting. So there, in that case, you have no other way but to depend on the private sector, because private sector is more agile, more flexible. Simply for that reason,
Absolutely.
they can change faster
Absolutely.
than the public sector. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing your time once again.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be on your show, and something. Oh, it's different, every time you get to talk of something absolutely different. And I hope your viewers will enjoy this program. Thank you very much, Jay.
Jai Hind.